iPhone 18, Pro Max, the smaller dynamic island that could change everything. For years now, Apple fans have been hearing the same promise again and again. Under-display Face ID is coming. Every iPhone cycle brings fresh leaks, confident predictions, and then nothing. Apple sticks with the dynamic island unchanged, while competitors experiment aggressively with hidden cameras and invisible sensors. But according to a new and detailed leak, the iPhone 18 Pro Max may finally take the first real step toward that future. And it starts with a noticeably smaller dynamic island. A leak that actually has numbers. Unlike vague rumors, this leak gives us something very specific: measurements. Well-known leaker Ice Universe, whose track record with display-related Apple leaks is generally solid, has shared exact dimensions for the new dynamic island. According to the information, Apple is planning to shrink the dynamic island by roughly 35%. To put that into perspective, the current dynamic island measures around 20.76 millimeters. On the iPhone 18 Pro Max, that number reportedly drops to 13.49 millimeters. That is not a minor tweak. It's a significant visual and functional change. If accurate, this would be the smallest dynamic island Apple has ever used since its introduction. Under-display Face ID, finally becoming real. So how is Apple able to reduce the size this much? The answer appears to be under-display Face ID technology. According to multiple sources over the past year, Apple has been working to move most of its Face ID hardware, including infrared sensors and flood illuminators, beneath the display itself. In the current iPhone design, the dynamic island hides two things: the front-facing selfie camera, a separate oval cutout for Face ID sensors. If Apple successfully places most of those sensors under the display, the visible cutout no longer needs to be an elongated pill shape. Instead, it can shrink dramatically, possibly even becoming a single circular cutout in the future. However, this leak suggests Apple is not fully there yet. Why the dynamic island isn't just a circle yet? Interestingly, the leaked image still shows something more than just a simple camera hole. That strongly implies some sensors are still above the display, even if others have moved underneath. In other words, Apple appears to be taking a gradual approach rather than an all-at-once redesign. This fits Apple's philosophy perfectly. The company prefers incremental changes that maintain reliability instead of radical redesigns that risk performance issues, especially with something as critical as Face ID security. The off-centered island mystery. One detail from the leaked image has sparked debate online. The dynamic island appears slightly off-center. That immediately raised eyebrows. Apple is famously obsessed with symmetry, and placing such a visible UI element off-center would be extremely uncharacteristic. There are two likely explanations. One, the image is a rushed mock-up and not perfectly aligned. Two, the perspective or cropping is misleading. Most analysts agree the final product will almost certainly maintain visual symmetry. Apple simply doesn't design flagship devices with awkward placement, especially not on the front display. Why a smaller dynamic island matters more than you think. At first glance, a smaller cutout might sound like a cosmetic change, but it has bigger implications, especially for software. The dynamic island isn't just a camera cutout. It's a live interface element. Apple uses it for live activities, navigation cues, music playback, sports scores, ride-sharing updates. By shrinking the hardware footprint, Apple gives itself more usable screen space around it. That could lead to what many are calling a Dynamic Island 2.0 experience. More information, cleaner animations, and possibly new interaction styles. Apple could even make this an exclusive feature for Pro models, giving buyers another reason to choose the higher-end devices. Conflicting leaks in the Jon Prosser moment. Of course, not all leaks agree. Jon Prosser, who recently returned to leaking after a long absence and legal trouble with Apple, shared a bold concept earlier. His version showed the selfie camera pushed to the corner. No visible Face ID components at all. That leak was quickly criticized and largely dismissed. Based on newer information, it now seems likely that Prosser either misinterpreted his data or had the sensor orientation flipped. Current rumors consistently place under-display Face ID components on the left side, the selfie camera remaining closer to the center. So while his leak may have been based on real internal data, the final interpretation appears to have been off. What this means for the iPhone 18 lineup. As production timelines approach, leaks tend to become more accurate. Supply chain confirmations usually begin once Apple finalizes component orders and manufacturing ramps up. Right now, expectations for Apple's fall lineup include iPhone 18, iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, possibly the long-rumored iPhone Fold. However, nothing is guaranteed. Apple could still decide to delay the foldable and stick with a more traditional lineup. What has seemed increasingly likely is some change to the dynamic island, even if it's not a complete redesign. A transitional year for Apple design. If this leak turns out to be accurate, the iPhone 18 Pro Max could represent a transitional design phase. Not fully hole punch, not fully invisible sensors, but clearly moving in that direction. This would allow Apple to test under-display Face ID at scale, refine display quality, and ensure security performance meets its standards, before making the final leap to a truly uninterrupted screen. Final thoughts. A small change with big meaning. The dynamic island getting smaller might not sound revolutionary, but it's symbolic. It signals that Apple is finally closing the gap between its long-term vision and real-world hardware. It suggests that under-display Face ID is no longer just a rumor. It's actively being deployed step by step. Ice Universe's leak aligns with other reports, and given their history, this information deserves to be taken seriously, though cautiously. For now, we have a clearer picture of what the iPhone 18 Pro Max could look like. And if this is just the beginning, Apple's front display design may be heading toward its biggest transformation since the notch first appeared.